What's going on, guys? I hope everyone is doing amazing. In today's video we'll be looking at poetry. However, it won't be me sharing the poem though. We'll be looking at a poet called In Q, and he's got a poem called A Poem About Saying Yes. And I used to listen to this guy maybe 5-6 years ago, and as I was about to go ahead, search the video up and listen to it once again, I thought, you know what, why not take you guys along? Why not make this into these, reaction videos, see what goes through my head. For all of you poetry enthusiasts, go ahead and share your thoughts. Without further ado, let's just dive straight in. I love TEDx. Love it.
It's hard for me to say yes. It's easier for me to say next year, when the weather's fine, when I have the money or the time or the relationship I want, or the career or the house or the car or the watch. Watch life pass me by waiting for an invitation when the world is greater than my nation or my occupation.
Okay, so some of it is pretty standard, but I think I get what he's doing here, So he starts with the weather, and then he starts with, a relationship, and then goes into a car, a house, a career, occupation, then nation. And these are all things that define our decisions on different degrees. The weather, you can say, is the sort of on the lowest degree. I mean, our career is a lot more influential to our decisions than the weather. And it's quite interesting that, he's sort of layered it up. But essentially, all of these things, they shape who we are and they decide our decisions. So, it makes sense because the poem is about saying yes.
The only thing I know is that we're all in this together. And the future of this earth depends on how we treat each other. But how we treat each other starts with how we treat ourselves. And how we treat ourselves starts with how we see ourselves. And how we see ourselves starts with context.
Okay, so he's linked everything he said in the beginning to that context, So how we treat each other is linked to how we see ourselves. And how we see ourselves is linked to context, or is dependent on context. And of course that context is the weather, the time, the money, the car, the relationship, the house, and the career, and the nation, and whatever things that shape us. So he's really sort of brought it back around again.
Nothing can exist without its opposite. Remember this, the next time you find her in an argument and both sides are talking and you forget your point, except you're angry now and want to win. So you continue yelling till they give it up by giving in, so you can stand victorious because you're right on what again?
So that's quite funny. So he's linked it all. So he's saying, right, it's all dependent and linked to the context, but it can't exist without its opposite. And then he kind of used an argument as an example with the two opposites, right? So if I have the ability to make an excuse and say, the weather is not right for me to go out on a jog, then the opposite is that I can say that the weather is just perfect to go out on a jog. Some people don't like jogging in the rain, but there are some people that are like, it's raining, it's perfect for a jog. I love it. It's liberating. So he's then used an argument, and you're arguing back and forth on what again? And he's just proving that at the end of the day, it's all contextual. It doesn't matter what you're arguing about. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It doesn't matter about, the opposites. Essentially, you're arguing on what again? Implying or trying to show that it's pointless anyway. It doesn't matter.
And you yelling till they give it up by giving in, so you can stand victorious because you're right on what again?
What again?
That's why we send young people to war.
Ooh.
Young people tend to die without asking what for.
It's amazing how he's then linked just a simple argument to war, because really they're the same thing but on a different degree, isn't it? You know, an argument is basically two parties, you know, expressing each other back and forth, you know, to try and stand victorious, to try and get the other party to surrender. And then in a war, it's the same thing, right? There's two countries or two nations fighting, expressing each other back and forth in the form of weapons and destruction and dying and killing, you know. And then the same way when you argue and you're victorious and you think back and it's like, why, what's, you know, on what again? You know, it's pointless. He's linking it back to the kid or the person who's going to the army and he doesn't even know what he's dying for, doesn't even know what for. And I think it's quite a common thing that happens.
That's why we send young people to war. Young people tend to die without asking what for. But one man's ceiling is another man's floor. Let's meet up in between, said the ocean to the shore. Hopelessly inquisitive, a mind without a master. I watched the master on a tab of acid, then performed after, and yet my set was an unparalleled disaster, because all my poems came out as
laughter. You see, the opposites come into play really well, you know? I'm going to repeat that a bit.
But one man's ceiling is another man's floor.
One man's ceiling is another man's floor.
Let's meet up in between, said the ocean to the shore.
The ocean and the shore in between.
Hopelessly inquisitive, a mind without a master. I watched the master on a tab of acid, then performed after, and yet my set was an unparalleled disaster, because all my poems came out as
No.
Do you laugh on instinct or do you choose to laugh?
Okay. Do you laugh on instinct or do you choose to laugh? So I guess, you know, the same question could be asked with, you know, if I want to do something and I put it off because of the weather or whatever it is, am I choosing to do that thing or am I going to do it on instinct? You know? And I think he's trying to make that shift in decision making. A poem about saying yes. You know, instinctually there is no such thing as yes or no. It just, you do it, you know. And now he's using laughter as an example.
Do you ask because you care or do you merely ask? I ask you this because I care about how humans act. We're animals, aware of our future and our past, and this can be an obstacle to traveling our path. Instead of just accepting where we're at, we analyze our tracks for what we could have had, looking back, focused on the memories instead of on the facts, hence what we attract. But it's hard to factor in how fast it really flashes past. It's an exponential graph from creation into ash. I'm sentimental 1 minute, then I'm making plans, staking claims, shaking hands, breaking out or breaking in.
So, you know, he's using time as the analogy here, and how, you know, the future and the past, they can all be obstacles. You know, I'm sentimental 1 minute, you know, thinking about the past, but then all of a sudden I'm making plans, you know, looking into the future, and then I'm either breaking out or breaking in. And he's just, you know, beautifully highlighting our relationship with the past and the future, which again is just another sort of, you know, two opposites.
I have about 1 billion mimes hidden underneath my skin, and they push my face into this grin or pull my wrinkled forehead in. So pour the gin, philosophize, cause no one has your awesome eyes. Your view is worth the lows and highs we go through on these coaster rides. Control has got us holding on. when letting go could be more fun.
Okay. Right. So now he's giving you the opportunity or the option that you don't have to be bound by these oppositions. You don't have to be stuck in between the past and the future. You don't have to be, stuck in any form of decision making, really. If we just let go, we then rely on spontaneity. And I guess he's linked it back to that whole, question of, do you choose to laugh or do you laugh on instinct?
Hands up on the coaster rides. Control has got us holding on when letting go could be more fun. Hands up. Everybody put your hands up. Now feel the drop. Shake it out. Eventually this all has to stop. Level out.
Oh my God. Hands up and then let it drop. Shake it out, because it eventually all has to stop. Man, so he's just now he's bringing gratitude into it. Just be grateful you're here now. Like all of this trying to hold on, all of this trying to control your life so much is what's creating all these obstacles and inhibiting you to flourishing and becoming the greatest version of your life or living the greatest life. And just realize that all of this will eventually stop. So just appreciate it. Take it as it comes, Let go. That's his message here, I guess.
Hands up. Now feel the drop. Shake it out. Eventually this all has to stop. Level out, then come back up until we reach the very top, because one day all your wheels fall off, so take advantage of your shocks. Do something you've never done. Do someone you've never done. Go someplace you've never gone. Someplace that will scare you some. Be someone you've never been. You feel all that adrenaline? It's medicine to jumpstart the spark inside your skeleton. See, everywhere you are is where you're supposed to be. So hopefully you're hopelessly as lost as me.
So he's just redefined the whole term of being lost, because being lost, your main objective is to find yourself or find where you are, and he's just saying it's okay to be lost, because at the end of the day, the most beautiful thing in life is the spontaneity of it. Do things you've never done. Wherever you are is where you're supposed to be. Because if we tell ourselves otherwise, it's not really ourselves telling ourselves otherwise. It's our environment, our influence. It's either the weather, the car, the money, the time, our career, our nation, our occupation, whatever it is, that's what's telling us where we're supposed to be. But really, wherever we are is where we are supposed to be.
Hopefully you're hopelessly as lost as me. Because if you're not, you ought to be. Welcome to TEDx Hollywood.
Now, honestly, every time I watch this guy, I kind of discover like a new perspective in the way he sees or the way he's describing something. And I really like this type of poetry. It's eye-opening. It makes you think, it makes you reflect. It makes you look at yourself. He's really good at taking something that we may view as undesirable, turns it into something really desirable, like being lost. But at the end of the day, poetry is a form of expression, just like many other things. And there's really no right or wrong in it. And I feel like it gives you a great insight into someone's perspective. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in seeing life from your eyes, seeing life from a different angle, always. Because I know the flaws that lie in my own personal perspective. At the end of the day, my personal perspective is limited. So I always seek out a higher perspective, a different one. And I feel like, you know, listening to poetry or even writing poetry puts me in a place where I have to kind of redefine a perspective from scratch, you know, and it gives me a new, fresh look on a matter. And it also gives me the best way possible to describe a particular matter in my own means. But anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this. If you do want to see more of this kind of videos where I'm reacting to poetry or something else you may suggest, I'm very happy to go ahead and create more of these. I really love them. I do this anyway. I'm literally just sitting at home, you know, watching poetry or TEDx talks. But in any case, if you have any suggestions on maybe what poem I should react to next, let me know. For all of you poetry enthusiasts, or if you'd like to see more of my own poetry, I'm very happy to, you know, go ahead and share that. And aside from that, thank you so much for watching, and see you next week.